There are few things I love more than the Twilight universe. And honestly, the amount of times that I rewatch the movies is like, you might think something was wrong with me, and that you could be right. I honestly, nothing is more comforting to me than the blue-green hue of Twilight. I will put that movie on when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I'm angry, when I'm scared, when I'm depressed. I watch that movie multiple times a month. I'm not even kidding. Even if I'm just falling asleep to it. The movie is always on. It's never far away. I can't tell if this love is ironic or not anymore. Because objectively, these aren't the best books. I can see that now. But as a 13-year-old, I devoured these books. And they have been a part of my life ever since, which is why today we are diving back into the wonderful world of Twilight with a Midnight Sun reading vlog. I can't believe I haven't read this yet. This is, of course, Twilight from Edward's perspective. Now, here's the thing. The original Twilight is about 500 pages. Midnight Sun is about 800 pages. I know that Edward doesn't sleep, so I fully expect this to be just total unfiltered thoughts for the duration of the entire Twilight original book. I fear I'm making a mistake because this is going to slow down my reading goal, but I digress. It is well past time that I get back into it, and honestly, I just don't know if I have it in me to reread the entire series again. Maybe one day, but today's not that day. So we're gonna read it from Edward's perspective. We're gonna see if he has anything insightful to add, or if this is going to be, or if this is gonna completely like ruin my perception of Twilight. So join me on this journey. I should mention that going forward there will most likely be some spoilers. I mean, obviously we know the Twilight story, but I do want to kind of compare as I go, or like talk about new things that I find out in this book. So if you haven't read the book, and if you care to not have any of Edward's thoughts spoiled, then I'm very sorry. This might not be the video for you. But if you're okay with that, then let's dive in. I knew most of what to expect. First of all, these chapters are long, and the print isn't large, and that's, you know, I don't like to complain about that. Holy crap, Edward is unhinged. So the story starts on the day that Bella starts her first day at school, and so he's reading everyone's thought. Everyone's buzzing about, oh, there's a new girl, whatever. And then in the cafeteria, he sees her, and of course he can't read her thoughts, and he's like, what the heck, maybe my powers are degenerating, and this is how it starts. And then we fade to biology class, and first of all, his comments, what the heck? Like, he's just so rude. He's calling her ordinary. He's like, I hate her. And then she walks into biology in front of the fan, and he gets a waft of her scent, and then it's literally 20 pages of him just plotting her murder. He's like, how can I make this quick? He's like, she's right beside me, like, I could have like 10 to 15 seconds of feeding on her before anyone else notices, but then I've got to kill everyone else in this classroom, so that's like 20 people. The classroom is too high up, so nobody's gonna jump out of the window. All I have to do is block the door. He's like, I can do the left side first. At least they won't see it coming. But, you know, the right side has maybe like 10 seconds to freak out. He's like, I can kill 10 people in like 15 seconds. And then he's like, or should I kill everyone else in the classroom first and save Bella for last, so that way her blood will still be warm? Like, he's just going on and on and on and on for like 20 pages. And this is like the span of like 15 seconds of actual like real life experience from... She's not even at the table yet, right? Like, she has just walked in the classroom, and he's like, plotted her entire demise. And then he's like, I gotta be better than that. Like, I can wait until after class. I can offer to walk her to her next class, and then come up with a lie like, oh, I left a book in my car, and then take her outside and do it there, and that way there's only one casualty. Like, he's trying to justify the crap out of this, and it's just going 1,000 miles per minute. And then he makes it through, okay? He survives, and his, you know, the rest of the clan, they're all like, what the heck? Because they all carpooled in his Volvo for some reason. That's not movie accurate, but it doesn't matter. And then Alice sees his decision to, like, leave, and she's like, oh no, like, you gotta at least tell Carlisle, like, whatever. And then, as we know from the movies and from the original book, like, the next week, Edward is gone. The funniest thing, I cannot tell if Stephenie Meyer is playing a joke on me, but the way that it sounds is those, like, 5 days that he's gone, he spends in the middle of a forest, like in a snowbank. Like, he's just lying there for like 6 days straight. This is when we first get introduced to, like, the Denali clan and, like, Tanya and all of them. Of course, like, in the movies from Bella's perspective, or even in the book, like, we don't meet them until, like, way later on in the series. But here we meet them firsthand, and that's where we're at. Like, I literally can't believe that's how that chapter started. He's like, I leaned back against the soft snowbank, letting the dry powder reshape itself around my wake. My skin had cooled to match the air around me, and the tiny pieces felt like velvet under my skin. Like, he's just lying in this snowbank for 6 days. At least that's how I choose to see it, which is absolutely unhinged, and I'm obsessed with Edward. A couple of interesting developments. So we're at the car crash scene still, like, very early on in the Twilight story, but it's taking forever to get there because Edward won't shut up. But I digress. So obviously, and I don't know why this never occurred to me before, but Alice saw the car crash, like Tyler Crowley's van going to smush Bella, in a vision. And because Edward reads her mind, he saw that, and that's why he sprung into action so quickly. Obviously, that makes sense. I don't know why that never occurred to me. So I caught her around the waist, moving with too much urgency to be as gentle as she would need me to be. In the 100th of a second between yanking her slight from out the path of death and crushing her to the ground with my arms, I was vividly aware of her fragile, breakable body. When I heard her head thump against the ice, it felt as though I had turned to ice too. And then he says, and this makes me laugh so much, he says, a word I'd never said in the presence of a lady slid between my clenched teeth. So this, we keep forgetting, this is like a 1910 boy. Like, he's from the 1910s. Oh, what is he exactly? It might be a little bit later. I'll have to fact check. But that's just so funny. Also, her head hit the ice? That's so much more violent than I remember it being. This has got to be one of the funniest bits of lore I have ever read in my life. The first time Edward goes to watch Bella sleep, he does so because he's, like, convinced. I don't know if you can hear my cat. I'm sorry. He does so because he's convinced that a meteor is going to strike her dead in her sleep. And he says, the only way I could be positive she was safe was if there was someone in place to catch the meteorite before it could touch her. I kid you not. That is so funny. I have to bookmark this because I'm dying. Because at this point, Alice has seen a vision. Either he's going to fall in love with Bella or he's going to kill Bella. And he's trying to not do either of those things. He doesn't want to do either of those things. But boy is falling hard. And then he's like watching her sleep so that a meteorite doesn't get her. Guys, I'm loving this so much. This is so funny. Hello. I have a lot of thoughts. Maybe too many thoughts. I've started reading Midnight Sun on my Kobo because this is a lot to drag around. But I've transferred my annotations to the book to give you my thoughts. I'm on page 250 of 800. And there are some things that I completely forgot about. First of all, also, I have a disco ball in the window and the sun just hits it so perfectly and it's gorgeous. Edward is so obsessed with Bella, like so obsessed. I guess I wouldn't have known this reading the original series, but Alice has a vision where Edward is either going to kill Bella or fall in love with her. And so he tries to do neither. He's like, I'm not going to do either of those. She doesn't deserve it. It's not acceptable. But then he just slowly falls in love with her, which we get Mike. This is where every boy is asking Bella to the dance. So Mike is asking her here, and Edward's listening, and he, this is so funny. He's like, I accidentally uprooted the young spruce tree my hand was resting on when he pinched a strand of her hair between his fingers. Okay, Mike. Ballsy. Also, you wouldn't get this from like watching the movies, and I guess not from the original series either, because you never know Jessica's thoughts. Girl Loki hates Bella, like with a passion, and it's so unwarranted, but she's always like, she is not prettier than me. What does Edward see in her? What does Mike see in her? Like, she is so annoying. Like, what? Girl. Jessica does not seem like a girl's girl. And I know a couple of Jessicas who are not girls, so that checks out. What is also interesting, what I have learned, is obviously Edward can read everyone's thoughts except for Bella's. He also can't read Charlie's thoughts. He can get like a sense of his mood or his thoughts, or like, you know, like, are these happy thoughts or these sad thoughts? Like, what is he feeling? Not like Jasper's mood recognition, but he can, like, he gets the vibe of Charlie's thoughts, but he can't actually hear Charlie's thoughts. So it's like the whole Bella, or it's the whole Swan clan, that he just can't really read any thoughts. And by clan, I mean Charlie and Bella, because his mom is a different bloodline and she's the only child they have. Anyway, but I forgot, or what I didn't know and what makes a lot of sense is Edward can see, not only, like, he reads people's thoughts, but he can like see through their eyes, which is a little freaky. Like, he keeps tabs on Bella when she's in Port Angeles by like reading Jessica's and Angela's thoughts. So he's like, where are they? Like, let me get in Angela's mind. She's looking at Bella. This is what Bella's face is doing. So he can see her through people's thoughts, which kind of makes sense. When you're reading thoughts, is like you can see what they see. But it's further pointed out in this sentence, which I thought was really interesting and like low-key gross. He says, I was already tired of listening to Jessica. I searched close by for Angela. But Angela was in the process of changing dresses, and I skipped quickly out of her head to give her some privacy. I mean, that's gentleman behavior, but like so creepy, because if he wanted to, he could just see through her vision to see the mirror where she's like changing dresses, or if she's like looking down or whatever. But that does come in handy later when he's tracking down, like when Bella's about to be attacked in Port Angeles, he's like, he can hear all of these men's thoughts. Like, there's like 3 or 4 of them who are like approaching Bella, and they're having really nasty thoughts, really gross thoughts, really scary thoughts. But he's like, I don't know where they are. I don't know where Bella is. I don't know where these men's voices are coming from. And so he's like bouncing around in their minds, trying to get like some inkling of like, what are they seeing? Like, is there a store? Is there a street sign? And then he's one guy, so there's like the leader who's like, I attack women, this is what I do, and then he's got some friends along, and the one friend is like super nervous, so he keeps like looking over his shoulder to make sure no one's coming, and when he does, he looks at a street sign, and then Edward instantly knows where Bella is. So I don't know, that's fascinating. I don't know why that never would have occurred to me, but that is very interesting lore. And like, ooh, he almost goes and kills all of them, but he doesn't, for Bella's sake. I forgot that the line, do I dazzle you, is a real line. Should have kept that one to yourself, Edward. I also forgot that Bella says, holy crow. Also keep that to yourself, Bella. That's really annoying. But I forgot how much Edward and Bella, like, hang out before the meadow scene. Like, and the timeline is a little bit different in the books. Again, this is all stuff I forgot because I read the original series 10 years ago, and then I've been watching the movies ever since. And there's just things that you can't fit in a movie that has like a 2-hour runtime, right? But they hang out so much. Like, he drives her home at one point because she like almost passes out in science class because they're doing like blood sampling. So she sees blood and she like almost passes out, and then he takes her home. Very nice. Also, oh yeah, at the restaurant, so after the incident in Port Angeles, they're at the restaurant, and this is when like Bella full on brings up like, hey, because I was at the beach last week with my friends, you know, the beach that you don't go to, and I was talking to Jacob Black, and he said that your family are vampires. I didn't know that this came to light before the meadow scene, and I'm like right in the middle of that conversation, so I'm gonna see where it goes. But yeah, that's so interesting. Just obviously they had to timeline it differently for the movies. I understand, but it's fascinating. So I'm gonna keep reading, and I'll let you know. I'll keep yapping your ear off in a few more minutes. Just give me some time. Immediately, so Edward is like, you don't care if I'm a monster, if I'm not human? And she says no. And immediately his thought is like, I started to wonder if she was entirely stable. I suppose that I could arrange for her to receive the best care available. Carlisle would have connections to find her the most skilled doctors, the most talented therapists. Like, boy, what? You're the one who eats people, like... How old are you? 17. How long have you been 17? A while conversation is happening in the car on the way from the restaurant back to Forks. That doesn't happen in the meadow. That's crazy. The reading got serious enough that I had to put on my glasses. Listen to Edward. I keep forgetting he's like a 1920s boy at heart. The fabric had clung to her skin in such an appealing way, cut low enough to reveal the mesmerizing shape of her collarbones. Yeah. In a world of boys, he's a gentleman. Rereading this story and kind of relearning the plot points because they differentiate so much from the movie, which I can't believe. Like I said, I read the original series like 10 years ago, and I haven't revisited the books. I think I know like a lot of the lore has stayed with me, but I have not reread the actual plot points. Like Bella finds out that Edward is a vampire way before the meadow scene, and they have a discussion about it. She lets him know, hey, I know. It's crazy. The timeline is weird, but I want to share with you some things that I've highlighted in the last couple of chapters because I'm now 60% of the way through, and I just exited the meadow scene, okay? We just had that. We haven't gotten to anything with James or any kind of danger yet, so this is where we're at, and I want to share with you a few things I've highlighted from chapter 11, interrogations. They're having lunch because Bella and Edward were like having lunch every single day. They hung out so much before the meadow, before they kind of decided to like date or whatever it is that they're doing, which is so interesting. And I was telling my husband this because obviously I rewatch the movies a lot, and he also therefore rewatches the movies a lot. He might know as much as I do, but they're in the lunch. I feel like this is a disservice to the character of Bella because I know when the movies came out, like one of the huge critiques was like, oh, Bella's character is so boring. Like Kristen Stewart's a terrible actor. I think Kristen Stewart did a fantastic job, but I feel like the script did a disservice in building up her character by leaving all of this out. Like her and Edward have so many conversations about who she is. They're getting to know each other, and she's kind of funny, if I'm being honest. And I feel like that's a bit of a disservice to the movie characters. But anyway, having lunch, and she's asking him like, I know you don't need human food to survive, but like, can you eat? What happens if you eat? And so he grabs a piece of pizza and he takes a bite, and then he says, I sighed as I thought of how I would have to choke it back up later. Disgusting. Well, obviously we wouldn't know that from Bella's perspective in the original book, but that's so interesting because I kind of just thought like they could chew and swallow, but it would just kind of like sit in their body forever, and so they had to be careful like not to eat too much or else they might like expand. I don't know. Stephenie Meyer is just making this up as she goes. And to that I feel like is probably partially true. I feel like to a degree, because Midnight Sun came out in like 2021, 2022, I'll have to double check, but like only a couple years ago, I feel like she's making up a lot of the lore now because people had so many questions about the original series. So now that she can speak from Edward's perspective, she's like, this is how the vampires work. So, I mean, kudos to her. But also from chapter 11, Edward says, are you referring to the fact that you can't walk across a flat, stable surface without finding something to trip over? Lest we forget that Bella is a quirky girl. Quirky, quirky, quirky. Can't walk on a flat surface. Because she's just so different and unique and accident prone and clumsy. Oh my gosh. In chapter 12, Complications, Edward says, "That didn't fit with my idea of her character. But how could I be sure?" Which is such an odd phrase. Your idea of her character? You don't know her? How dare you? In chapter 13, Another Complication, I thought this line was so funny because it's so like 2005 and I love that. I lived through it. He asks her, "What is in your CD player right now?" And I was like, that is the cutest, most early 2000s kind of like 20 questions get to know you. And it's Linkin Park. She's listening to Linkin Park, which apparently is not her choice. Phil, her stepdad, gave her the CD. He's trying to expand her musical taste, so that's fun. So this kind of area, he's really playing 20 questions. He's asking her all the mundane stuff. He asks her what her favorite movies are, and her answer surprised me. She says Pride and Prejudice, the 6-hour one with Colin Firth, obviously, Vertigo, which is interesting for somebody of her vertical challenges, and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Claps for Bella's taste in movies, because honestly, all three of those really slap. I also want to point out that I highlighted just the word showered, because it never occurred to me that Edward would shower. It kind of makes sense, I guess, since they're running around in the woods all the time, but it's not like they sweat or anything. And I don't know why, that just, like, I thought that was so interesting. I thought it was also funny. On the day that they do go to the meadow, this was all pre-planned. This was like a date, and he was going to show her his sparkly skin in the meadow. This was all pre-thought out. And so he goes to pick her up, or not pick her up. He goes to her house because they've agreed that she's going to drive in her truck, and he'll go with. And he opens up the door, and she's wearing the exact same outfit as him, which is blue jeans, a white button-up collar shirt, and a tan sweater over top, which is just the funniest outfit. And then they're both wearing the exact same outfit. I always forget, because this is what the movie did right. They gave Bella, like, style. Is it good? That's up to your opinion on what is good style, but at least they gave her something. Also now they're in the meadow. And I thought this was super interesting description. He says, "Her heart throbbed wetly, just a foot from my ear." I didn't need to hear it described like that. Thank you, Edward. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling, and I'm going to get to reading. Y'all, this is really just like the trip of a lifetime back to when I was younger than 13, wasn't I? I was little when the movies came out, and I was obsessed with the books. I've just entered the part where they're at the baseball game and James and Laurent and Victoria show up. I love the movies, okay? I've said that a million times. I'm going to say that a million times because I need you to understand. I love the movies. They're so near and dear to my heart. However, they did Bella such a disservice by not including any of her humor. Girl is funny. After Edward stays the night for the first time with her knowledge, because, you know, he'd been watching her sleep up until then, but the first time he stays the night with her actively, and then he's like, breakfast time, I suggested. Bella hesitated, perhaps as averse as I was allowing any space to come between us. Then she twisted her torso away from me, leaning back so I could see her face. Her eyes were round with terror, her mouth flew open, and her hands flew up to protect her throat. Like, she's making a vampire joke. She's making a "you're gonna eat me for breakfast" joke. Girl is funny. And, like, the whole physicality of it, too. Like, she's not pulling any punches. Girl is funny. Now, so this is the day after the clearing, okay? Well, I'm so sorry for this. This is bothering me now. So they're at the clearing all day Saturday. And then he spends the night, Saturday to Sunday. And then Sunday, they're like, he's like, let's go meet my family. And so, as I remembered, the outfit Bella wears to meet the family. Oh, also, I don't know if you saw this. I got my nails done today. These are my Halloween nails, but of course, I had to do them Twilight themed. Anyway, they're going to go meet Edward's family, and the outfit that Bella chooses is a ankle-length khaki skirt and a blue blouse. Now, we don't get much more information about this blouse other than Edward likes her collarbones in it. This is the same one she wore to the restaurant in Port Angeles, like one of the first official times they hung out. And so he's like gagged at the sight of her. He's like, and then she's like, what, should I go change? Like, he's like, you're utterly indecent. No one should look so tempting. It's not fair. Bella is dressed about as Mormon as you can get. And if you didn't know, Stephenie Meyer's a Mormon. I feel like that is just such important information when you reread this series, because it's just written everywhere in there. Also, every time Edward kisses Bella, she faints. She's just gone. She is holding her breath because she's like, I don't want to make this harder for my guy. But she's just passing out every time their lips touch. It's hilarious. Then we have a moment where Edward plays her piano. I'm giving you the footnotes, guys. I'm giving you everything that I find super fascinating. Stuff that is like kind of like being resurfaced in my memory from 10 years ago when I originally read this series. So he's playing piano for her, Bella's lullaby, as it is, and she starts to tear up. She starts to get a little emotional. Valid. If a boy played me a song, I would get emotional too. But then he licks her tear. Like, not straight off her face. He does, you know, with his finger, absorb her tear. He's like a tiny clear piece of her, an ephemeral diamond. Acting on some strange instinct, I reached out to catch it with my fingertip. Round on my skin, it sparkled as my hand moved. I swiftly touched my finger to my tongue, tasting her tear, absorbing this minute particle of her. And then he goes on to think like, hey, there's no telling if this thing is going to live inside me forever, which will be a consolation prize for when she eventually dies. I'll still have this tear of hers somewhere in my body. So that's weird. Also, we're getting more into Jacob's thoughts. He's so sad that Bella is with Edward. And Jacob is just like, oh, man, like, she's dating another guy. Like, I should have known. I'm too young. And he's, like, 2 years younger than her. But still, I'm also reminded I'm on chapter 22, The Hunt. I've got about just under 200 pages left. So I will probably finish this tomorrow because I need to pace myself tonight, I think. Okay, James is hunting Bella, and so, like, the Cullen clan has split up to get Bella away, like, lead the tracker away. We know this. But it's so funny because, like, Edward is, like, has no idea how to be away from Bella anymore. And he's so concerned about her, like, cute, we get it. You're gonna be away from each other for, like, 3 days. Terrible. But he's with Carlisle, and he's, like, as Edward is driving, he's getting Carlisle to text Alice instructions, because Alice is with Bella. And he says to tell her, Bella needs to eat at least 3 times every 24-hour period, and hydration is important. She should have water on hand, ideally 8 hours of sleep. Which is just funny to think about, like, yeah, okay, none of them have been human in, like, decades, if not hundreds of years for some of them, but Carlisle is a doctor, like, a human doctor. He knows what these humans need to survive, and I don't know, this was just so funny. Obviously, we would never know this in the original Twilight because this is happening without Bella here, and I just think it's so funny and kind of cute, and I just had to point that out, so thank you for listening. Here's something I didn't know, and that completely changes how I think of everything. So everybody splits up. Oh, my stickers fell. Everybody splits up to try and lead James away from Bella. So Edward, Carlisle, and Emmett are together. And this is at the point where they realize, oh, James is on to us. He knows Bella isn't with us. And so James turns around and is going after Bella now. And do you know how he does that? He takes a plane. James steals a little plane and just zips back. That's so random. That's so random, but hilarious. I can't imagine the James of the movie in an airplane beelining it back to Forks. And then, like, Carlisle, Edward, and Emmett all have to jump on a plane and go back too, but it's like a commercial flight, so there's other people. It's just a weird, like, little context thing. But now, anyway, they're racing. They're in a car. They stole a minivan. Well, they've stolen several vehicles at this point, let's be honest. But they've stolen a woman's minivan now. And obviously we know that Edward, he mentions in New Moon, at least in the movie, I'm not sure of the books anymore. I know nothing. In New Moon, he mentions to Bella, like, he had to, when he's explaining who the Volturi is, he mentions that he had to think about it once when he thought she was going to die in the first book / movie. So he says, for a tenth of a second, I was back in my Volvo in Forks, thinking of ways to kill myself. Emmett would never, but maybe Jasper. He alone could feel what I felt. Maybe he would want to end my life just to escape the pain. But probably he would run away instead. He wouldn't want to hurt Alice. So that left the longer trip to Italy. So he's mapped it out already at this point. He's kind of convinced. His mind, you know, things are going to go two ways. He's going to save Bella or he's going to kill himself. So we obviously know how it ends, but it's fascinating nonetheless. Fascinating nonetheless. I have 100 pages left, so I'll finish this in about an hour. So we know that James tricks Bella into going to the ballet studio because she thinks that he has her mom. So many words, I can't speak. But, and we also know that he, like, makes a videotape of Bella. Like, he's really weird and freaky, and he wants to toy with Edward. And so he does that, whatever. At this point, at what point I'm at, Bella is safe. They're at the hospital. All is well and done. But then Edward is, like, torturing himself by watching this videotape back. He's like, Bella had to live it, I have to watch it. But it's so sad because James, like, zooms in on her face and Edward comes to this realization. Her expression was perfectly clear to me. She was starting to realize. She'd known that he was going to kill her. She had never considered that he would torture her first. Panic touched her eyes for the first time since she discovered her mother was safe. Yo, torture's a whole nother thing. That's freaky scary. So good on Edward for, like, watching this. But it's, you know, Edward is the original, like, chairman of the Tortured Poets department. Like, he coined torturing himself, if I'm being totally honest. So I'm shook. Okay, so when everyone arrives to save Bella, Bella's, you know, she's got the venom in her, she's dying, she's gasping in pain, whatever, and she says, like, Alice, he knew you. James knew you. James loves good monologue, okay? So he keeps going on and on. It's the only reason Bella survived as long as she did, because boy loves to talk. James knew Alice. Says, I would like to rub it in just a little bit. The answer was there all along, and I was so afraid Edward would see that and ruin my future. It happened once, oh, ages ago, the one and only time my prey had escaped me. She didn't even seem to notice the pain, poor little creature. The tracker was explaining she'd been stuck in that black hole of a cell for so long, 100 years earlier, and she would have been burned at the stake for her visions. In the 1920s, it was the asylum and the shock treatments. When she opened her eyes, strong with her fresh youth, it was like she'd never seen the sun before. The old vampire made her a strong new vampire, and there was no reason for me to touch her then. I destroyed the old one in vengeance. Alice had visions as a human, and James had been tracking her. Like, she was his original prey, and then some old vampire, like, turned her into a vampire, and then he killed the old vampire because that pissed him off. This all makes so much sense. Did I know this earlier? I have no idea if this was in the original Twilight or not. Probably not. Like, no, because this is Edward's realizing. Well, oh no, I'm stupid. James is saying this to Bella, so she would have known. But that's crazy. So I would have known. That's crazy that I forgot. That's a lot of backstory information, because Alice had never known where she came from before she was a vampire. Like, she just woke up one day in the sun and her skin was sparkly and she didn't know what was happening. That's crazy. Edward is a little snake, okay? What a rude man. In the hospital, he's, Bella's just woken up and he's like, I'm gonna have to leave because I'm so dangerous for you. And she's begging him, please don't leave. I love you, please don't leave. And so out loud, he keeps telling her, okay, like, I'm not gonna leave. I'm gonna stay as long as you need me. And then in his mind, he's just like, as soon as I can, as soon as she's healthy, as soon as it makes the most sense, like, I'm out of here. Which, the foreshadowing for New Moon is crazy, because the book literally ends with him essentially lying to her, and then in the hospital. That's where the book ends, and then there's an epilogue, which I'm assuming is going to be the prom. But that's crazy. He's such a liar and a snake and a tramp. If we had a new moon in Edward's perspective, I wouldn't put it past him to have planned the paper cut incident at her birthday party. Like, what a jerk. And thus concludes Midnight Sun. Look at all those tabs. Let's talk about my final thoughts on Midnight Sun. Surprise, surprise, it's getting 4 stars. Also, I'm back in this shirt because it's my favorite thing ever. It's getting 4 stars. Overall, this was too long. I'm gonna be honest. At some points, it was really like, Edward, shut up. You're sharing too much, and you're being a bit much. Other than that, I had a really good time. It brought back a lot of nostalgia. Like, there were scenes in here that were obviously the same as in the original Twilight, because they happened with Bedward. They happened with Bedward. Ella and They happened with Bella and Edward. And so they were obviously the same as in the original Twilight, just from Edward's perspective, but they were still like that nostalgia factor where it was like, I remember reading this 10 years ago. This scene wasn't included in the movie, but like, just rereading it was like jarring that memory for me. So that was really fun. I do feel like Stephenie Meyer was just sandwiching in a lot of vampire information that people had questions about in the original series, like how the vampires worked exactly. So I feel like that was new information, which is good because it did help give more context, even if it came way after the fact. But that was still nice to have. I really loved Alice's visions. It's really cool how the Cullen clan kind of works together with these visions. Obviously, Edward can read people's thoughts, and so he can often see her visions as they're happening. But the way that they kind of, for example, at the end when they're needing to save Bella's life, then they're kind of like, oh, if we make this decision, what happens? And Alice is able to see, no, that doesn't work. So they're like, okay, we're gonna make this decision. And she's like, no, that doesn't work. And they're literally like making decisions, seeing how her visions play out, readjusting, etc. Like, some of them were literally like, if we take this car, like, Bella doesn't live. If we go in through this door, Bella doesn't live. So they have to like plan like really meticulously, which was just really fun to see that kind of behind the scenes, because obviously in Twilight, Bella goes off on her own because she thinks James has her mother, and then Edward shows up and saves the day. But there's actually like a lot of travel time and a lot of decision making that has to happen between ensure that Bella survives. I really didn't like at the end when Bella was begging Edward to stay with her, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna stay with you. And then in his mind, he's like, I'm gonna leave as soon as I possibly can. So should be expected, but overall, like 4 stars. Like the nostalgia factor, the added information that just led to this more rich world. Like, say what you want about Stephenie Meyer's vampire lore, but she has thought it through and she has created a really rich world. So I love that. It was just, I just think it was too long. There were some things that was just like, we didn't need to know this. So that's my only thing, but I had a really fun time. If you are a fan of the Twilight universe, I really do recommend picking this up, probably more so than like the gender bent version or anything like that, but a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!